by the way, as we're entering here, I don't know if it came across your phones, but Larry Flint just passed away. Yeah. So
Breaking news
on the first live episode of the Wayniac Nation Fantasy Football podcast. We are to the tens of people on Twitch watching us. We're live on Twitch, and I think my co-host Dunton said it best today when we told him, and he said, "Huh." Joining me from North Carolina, the world champion, Mike Dunton. Dunton, how are you this week?
I'm pretty good. I mean, I'm upright, unlike the quarterback of the world champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If anyone has not seen that video, go check out Weekend at Brady's.
Need someone to help him walk. That's for sure.
Brady's.
They didn't let him talk at the trophy presentation.
Ooh.
They just whisked him right away.
Yeah. He's so great, happy.
He threw the Vince Lombardi trophy across the Gulf of Mexico. Okay,
he did.
Let's talk about another time. We won the Super Bowl. I don't understand how it happened. It was amazing, great, fantastic.
You're a champ. And hopefully burrowing out of the snow up there in the Northeast as the one and only FanDuel Fee. Fee, how are you?
I'm good. Yeah, we're breaking out of it. Although I heard that we're supposed to get like another 8 to 10 inches or something soon. But I'm happy
we got 70
degrees
here today, by the way.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thanks, rubbing it. But I'm happy we got the live stream going on Twitch. My setup here is very awkward because it's not much of a setup because it's just our beginning here. So I might be looking that way instead of this way.
This is the pilot episode.
This is the pilot.
We're gonna do our best here.
The first episode of the Cosby Show had a completely different living room than by the time.
This is like, you know what it is? You know what this is? The first 14 episodes are saving Miss Bliss, and now we're Saved by the Bell. All right, now
we'll get there.
Later's here. You know, we got the real gang here. So hopefully this we'll have backgrounds. I'll get that ring light so longtime listener Josh Davis stops yelling at me. But we're getting there. So before we get to the main theme of the show, we do have a Super Bowl to discuss, and we should point out that I was the only one to pick the Bucks. We even have a Bucks fan. I finished the playoffs 11-3, picking in our picks. I think that's not too shabby, and I did pick the Bucks to be contrarian, but I did. You know that I was on them all year, and I kind of believed in them, and I did. I thought they would win. We all three of us, I believe, went under. Is that correct? Yeah. And I remember I started over, and Fee convinced me otherwise, making the.
We all went under though, thinking it was going to be the Bucks keeping the Chiefs low scoring and just not being able to catch them. We did not go under thinking the Chiefs were not going to score a touchdown.
I went under. That's true. But I also went under on all across the board. I went under on the team over-unders. I went under on the
like the individual
on the game,
team.
on the half. I was under on everything.
Shout out to Adam Green who got all those props right as well.
Yes.
It was a good one for props this year. There's a lot of good things that happened. Kelsey blew up, it was a good Super Bowl.
Hey, we all called Gronk having a huge Super Bowl. We were all on the Gronk.
All over Gronk.
And we said Blunt. We said Blunt could be the difference maker. And he certainly had a nice little touchdown run.
You mean Fournette?
I always call him LeGarrette Blunt. I don't know why. I always call him that because he kind of just runs like him.
He does run like him. You're all right about it. And it's the L. You're starting his name with L. So you're all right. At least you didn't ask the offensive coordinator of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers about your game plan for shutting down Patrick Mahomes because you thought he was the defensive coordinator.
Nice. So that wraps up our regular season picks. Obviously, we'll be practicing and doing fake picks the whole off season to make sure we get you the right picks next season. But what we are going to do today, we already had the Ass Hat Awards, and that went out to the biggest, basically the players that pissed us all off for one reason or the other. today we're going to hand out the Hamilton Ham Porter Award. And we call it that because if you look at Ham Porter in the Sandlot, you don't think he is the best player on the team. But next to Benny the Jet, he probably is the best player on the team. So today we're going to be looking at pleasant surprises. It's also kind of in honor of Tom Brady, who was not drafted very highly this year. And in most cases, in my case, and in the other league that I'm in, was drafted as the backup. Wasn't planned to start.
For sure.
And in our league alone, let's see, I had him. We drafted him 10th round, and he was 4th in QB points in our league. And looking around the league, it looks like he was anywhere, but I'm sorry, looking around to other leagues, it looks like he's anywhere from 4 to 7. I mean, Dunton, you want to talk about your favorite player in the NFL a little bit?
I mean, I'll be honest with you. Going into the season, I told you all I was worried Tom Brady couldn't throw the deep ball. The Bucs had deep threats, right? I mean, everyone knew that. Everyone said that. But maybe Tom Brady couldn't throw the deep ball because Tom Brady didn't have deep ball receivers. Because if you watched him throughout the year, that deep ball got better and better. I mean, and
less accurate though.
Very true. Yeah, for sure.
He definitely impressed me with his arm strength and leading passes, but he was sometimes that much away.
Yeah, I agree with you. But I also think I think he's just not used to being able to open it up. It just seems like under the Belichick, and this is not bashing Belichick by any means as a coach, right? But I think under the Belichick, there was just this tight, this is how we run the offense. This is what we do. We don't take chances. We hold on to the ball. We rely on our defense. And Bruce Arians is like, you're Tom Brady. Go do your thing. Yeah. And I think that's when he kicked into gear. And if you look at his stats, if you had Tom Brady and you were a playoff team, I'm speaking to an owner on this call right here, he did very well for you in the playoffs because that's when Tom Brady was clicking on
He let me trade Patrick Mahomes for Dalvin Cook.
Right.
I mean, that's the way I look at it.
And probably got you to the championship game, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It was solid. I mean, and I'm sure I'd love to see the percentage of fantasy championship teams that had Brady on them this year because he gave you a lot of flexibility because, like I said, he was drafted likely as your backup.
Exactly.
So he could move. I was able to move a Patrick Mahomes for one of the best running backs in fantasy.
Where'd you draft Mahomes?
Second round?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
Second round. Yeah.
I think I was back to back, right? Or was I 9?
You were 9.
Your 9 was Josh Jacobs in the first, and then in the second round on the comeback you took.
You don't have to go back to that guy. This is a positive episode.
Quarterback that went anywhere from round 7 to 10. I was looking on different sites today. Was someone Fee that you had and was really fun to watch. And Kyler Murray. I mean, you're talking about a guy that erupted this year early on, especially. He did kind of fade.
Yeah, he faded at the end. He got hurt. He was playing injured the last 3-4 weeks of the fantasy regular season, I'd say. Weeks 9, 10, 11, 12, 13-ish. He really was not doing a whole lot for me. He kept me. Listen, the guy kept me in our league. Basically, he was a one-man show for me with all the injuries that I had, and he did good for me. But towards the end is where it really kind of fell apart for me, having to rely on him.
Not like you said, a lot of it was injury related. You saw a huge difference when he got banged up. In that same round in our draft is a guy that will probably be a second rounder next year, and Dunton, you had him. I believe I'm almost positive you traded him to me the year before last.
I might have.
I feel like when he was on the Vikings.
Yeah.
But Dunton, you snagged Stefan Diggs in the 7th round, and that was kind of his average draft position this year. And we're talking about a guy that finished 3rd overall, the top number 3 receiver in fantasy football.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest. Stefan Diggs should be in the top 5, fantasy wide receivers in football. The thing with Stefan Diggs this year was, he was coming away from Minnesota where he's basically run out of town. It was like, get rid of this guy. He's a team cancer, right? Oh, gosh, he's coming to this young team that surprised us last year with this quick draw McGraw type quarterback who's going to fling it around. And man, two guys that click together. Woof. They're going to be fun to watch next year. They are. I mean, they are going to be fun to watch next year. So he was exciting.
Well, what about the guy that was thrown to him? Again, another guy taken in the 9th round, Josh Allen. And in many a league, he was drafted as a backup. He wasn't the intended starter, and again, that gives you, not only does it give you, I'm sure he finished towards the top of QB rankings, number 2. Not only does it give you a stud quarterback, but if you drafted him as a backup, you likely had a stud in front of him. So it gives you flexibility to make the big move when you need a big player. And that kind of value is, I don't want to say Josh Allen is like a pleasant surprise. We knew he was good. We just didn't know he was that good.
Well, and we didn't know what was going to happen. And Fee, I'll let you go in a minute, but we didn't know. Like, they just came off the playoffs. We saw him in the playoffs where he was just throwing it to anybody, right? And we were like, whoa, what's going to happen this year, right? Like, which Josh Allen is going to start?
No, definitely.
Right?
But he really came through. I mean, he really developed and quickly. Like, he just kind of turned it on and became a really, not just a fantasy good quarterback. He was a very good quarterback.
He was in the MVP conversation.
And
point.
Only Aaron Rodgers was better than him, fantasy wise.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, him and Diggs. Buffalo's gonna have some interesting decisions to make when the draft comes around. About they're gonna need a running back. They really do.
They have to go running back. We'll get there, I'm sure.
Moss was looking good, but he
the concussion, and then I don't know, but I think there's enough running backs out there that the Bills snag one. We'll get there when we talk about the draft at some point. So.
Yeah. Another guy that really turned into a pleasant surprise and was one of our starts for, I want to say 4 or 5 weeks in a row was, at least to me, David Montgomery. I didn't think he was that good, and there was heading into the season, there was a lot of talk that it would be a lot of Tariq Cohen. It would be a split backfield basically. Like Tariq Cohen was not going to be the third down back anymore, and there was a lot of expectation that it would be two-headed monster back there, and Tariq Cohen went down, and Montgomery, for I would say a 5-week span, was the number 1 running back in fantasy football. And maybe 3 or 4 weeks, maybe a little less, and he finished the top 5 running back on the season. He really showed he could do it.
And I drafted Tariq Cohen for exactly what you said, Wayne.
Right.
And then he was left behind way fast. Yeah, and I think part of the David Montgomery sneaking up on us, the Bears offense, right? Like, nobody really paid attention to the Bears offense because there was all the Trubisky talk, and then Foles is in there, and then Trubisky's back in the lineup, and all of a sudden they might make the playoffs, and nobody's really paying attention. The whole reason that's happening is because David Montgomery's running the ball.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he finishes the number 5 running back on the year.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's a lot of what we talked about throughout the season when we come the volume. They just had nobody else to give the ball to.
And he was taken in the 9th round, I think.
Yeah, the 9th round. I wonder. I didn't look. I wonder where you took Cohen. I wonder if Cohen went before.
Let's see if I can pull it up real fast.
Because that would be interesting. Because there was
he went in the 6th round.
Yeah, see?
6th round.
That increases Montgomery to possibly the surprise of the year.
The
guy that he took
shocked me.
James Robinson was picked up as a free agent. Was not drafted.
No.
And he ends up as the number 7 running back on the year. And if you watched our show at all, you would know that we were on James Robinson a lot this year.
Yeah.
A lot.
He was great.
We didn't have that this year, though, when you think about it. Maybe James Robinson was the guy, but there's always every year that one free agent that nobody drafted that just goes crazy, and somebody picked
crazy, not like a week or two. Like
every week.
Super, like Larry Johnson.
Yeah, right. Or I think Alvin Kamara might have been that the year I picked him up as a free agent when he just all of a sudden took off out of nowhere and went crazy, like his rookie season.
James Robinson is the closest thing you're going to get to that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Running back wise.
Corey Davis was one of those guys, except
absolutely
big seg in the Super Bowl. You can't do that.
No.
The fantasy Super Bowl, of course.
Right.
I think Dunton, you may have had this guy. What about Brandon Cooks? Did you have him?
I did not have Brandon Cooks.
But he went in the 14th round, and he wound up putting up some good numbers. We're not talking about a top 10 wide receiver here, but for a guy that went in the 14th round to finish in the top 20 fantasy wide receivers, you got yourself a bargain.
Right. I will. Yeah. Go ahead, Fee.
Well, I was gonna bring up, since we're talking about receivers, I was gonna bring up Justin Jefferson, who was also not drafted at all.
There you go. That's where I was going. So yes,
who finished as the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 number 7 wide receiver on the year.
Yeah, that's true.
Who was also very consistent about it too.
And he will be a top 10 wide receiver next year. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, he missed out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He missed out on as being a top 5 receiver by 0.6 points. Okay, so he's basically a top 5 receiver.
Right. And a lot of that was because Thielen was the touchdown guy. He was having games that, in a PPR, he was getting 8 catches for 130 yards without a touchdown sometimes.
Right.
Because Thielen would have 70 yards and 3 touchdowns.
And when he did score a touchdown, it was usually like a 60-yarder.
Right. And he'd just have like a 30-point day. Like the guy was just a beast.
Yep.
And he'll only get better. I mean,
well, depending on who's throwing him the ball, which becomes a big question in that scenario. So.
Right. But they have a great receiving core up there if they keep those guys. I mean, even like the little guys, Rudolph and Irv Smith, like those guys are just good pass catchers.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Josh, thanks for joining the show.
Nice.
We got a little chat going on.
Yeah,
long-time listener, first-time caller.
Nice. How's
Here's one that we talked about, Wayne, with our hats, but he would have been a surprise if he did not get suspended. Will Fuller.
But he was having a great. He was
right, and he ruined it. He was having a great year.
I think he won the asshat. I think he was the asshat of asshats, right?
Because he was doing so well and then blew it all.
You know who surprised me this year? And he's not really a surprise type of guy, but he surprised me as how well he did was Calvin Ridley finished as the number 4 receiver this year.
Right.
And he did it so quietly, I feel like. Like, I don't know. Maybe it wasn't quiet. Maybe it's just quiet.
I think it was quiet, though, because he was never doing it to win them games. Like, they were always.
It's almost like
it makes sense because they were.
When did he get all these points?
Because they were always behind.
And Julio was always hurt this year.
And Julio.
And your favorite Julio was never playing.
Listen, we already talked about Julio in the asshat show. So.
Right. That's true. Joe Burrow, he was having a solid year till that injury. Joe Burrow was going to be an amazing rookie quarterback.
Was he drafted
13th round? Yeah, 13th round pick in our league. And
that was definitely. If he didn't get hurt, he would have definitely been a big surprise.
Mm-hmm. Especially on a team that you didn't expect much from.
Right.
When did he get? That's true too. When did he get hurt?
Like week 5.
Oh,
early,
was that
right?
early?
Let's look, see if I can figure it out. I thought it was early because he was on a roll.
1, 2, 3, 4. Was it week 5? No, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Week 11.
11. Okay.
11 is the last week. Yeah, against the Washington football team.
The Washington football team.
Week 11.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was clicking.
They were a surprise this year, I would think.
That whole team was, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody. Yeah, they think about it. They were
Alex Smith, not fantasy wise, but Alex Smith. Come on.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, and what's his name? Logan Thomas. That guy. Last few weeks of the season, was he drafted in our league? How did I get him? I think I picked him up as a free agent.
And he had like 4 quarterbacks. I feel like this year.
Yeah. And he was good with all of them. The guy turned into like a legit. He'll be top 5 tight end drafted next year, right?
Well, tight ends are, I don't know.
Right. Well, I mean, what about Waller? There's another surprise. Fee, you mentioned it before the show.
Yep, he finished as the number 2 tight end. I don't know that he would be a surprise. I mean, he's obviously a top 3 tight end. I mean, behind Kelsey and Kittle, right? He was good last year. So I don't know that it's a surprise, although he was taken fairly late.
Yeah.
In the draft, he was taken round 5. I mean, maybe that's not that late for a tight end, but
for the numbers that he wound up putting up, he'd probably be a third rounder. Moving forward, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about someone who's a surprise, who's not a surprise. You can talk about Travis Kelce being basically the third best receiver,
That's
not tight end.
That's a surprise.
Receiver in the league. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's bring up Travis.
I mean, we've already
Kelce's
had this
points
debate.
here.
Does he get picked in the first round next year in fantasy leagues? I think he does.
I don't even know the first round. Like I'm saying like top 5 picks. The guy
261 makes him the fourth best receiver, not the third.
Fourth best receiver.
Adams, Tyreek Hill, Stefan Diggs, Kelce.
That's amazing. The guy, there's not a more consistent receiver in football of any kind, tight end, receiver, running back. The guy is just a machine. So yeah, I guess you could be a pleasant surprise in that matter. Is that how much
dominant he is.
You were than we actually thought you were.
You're so good that you're surprising us how good you are.
Right. We were very surprised you were able to get.
We knew you were good. We just didn't know you were that good.
Yeah.
I mean, tight end was a dumpster fire this year. I mean,
it was.
This was the worst year tight end since like the days that like Freddie Jones was being drafted.
Robert Tonyan was your number 3.
There's a surprise.
Hawkinson was
a good surprise.
And let me tell you why it's a surprise. And Wayne, you and I have had this conversation many a year. Aaron Rodgers hates tight ends.
Yeah. You don't thrive as a tight end.
So yeah,
like Bubba Frankson has 8 receptions for 8 touchdowns in his season. That's it.
T.J. Hawkinson was number 4. Mark Andrews was number 5. Logan Thomas, you mentioned, is 6. Gesicki 7. Gronk 8.
Gronk's was not consistent 8 though. Gronk's was condensed into a 5-week span, and then he stunk the rest of the weeks.
Yeah, I mean, like you when you drop down this list, what surprises me also is about how bad these guys were. Evan Ingram, Dallas Goedert. There's no mention of Zach Ertz, Austin Hooper.
Hooper.
Guys that we thought that were supposed to be halfway deep. Even Hunter Henry finished pretty low.
Yeah,
well, only 3 spots ahead of Evan Ingram.
I'm on that guy. I believe that he was going to be a great tight end, and he just can't stay on the field.
Oh, Hunter Henry.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
All right.
And I think all those injuries are going to end up catching up to him. Like I don't know how much much he's going to have left in the tank.
Especially at a tight end, he's not a receiver. He's a tight end getting hit every play.
Yeah.
So that wraps up the Hamilton Ham Porter surprise.
The biggest surprise of the year is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning the Super Bowl.
Well, fair enough. And I'm glad that you got that in there before we ended this week's show. Don't forget, follow us on Instagram, and keep checking out Twitch for
our live stream.
On Twitch on the feed. What is it? Tell us what it is.
It's twitch.tv/GhostWP420. And it's up on the schedule. We're here every Wednesday night at 9 p.m.
All right.
There you go.
Well, thanks for joining us as always, folks. We'll be back next week with more postseason wrap-up fun stuff to talk about. Have a good night and a pleasant tomorrow.
Hasta luego.
Stopped.
Hasta luego.
Hasta luego.
I wish I could.
All right, we're good. I'm gonna go do some work.
Okay.
All
I'm
right,
gonna go download the show and go to sleep.
Okay.
I wish I could
I'll see you
stop
Friday.
this thing.
Are we still live streaming?
I hope
Yeah.
so. It'd be great. Oh, great.
Dunton, well, I'll stay on with Fee for a second and see what's going on here.
Wonder
Okay,
why
hold
this
on. I
isn't
gotta
working.
switch this then.
All right. Good night. Good luck with your work.
Yes. Goodbye.
Good night.
What's
here
going
we
on?
go. All right, I can stop it now. I don't know. Yeah, it's probably the computer It's just using up too much bandwidth, and it just takes time
gotcha.
for. But I can end it now, so.
Okay.